I know that as he's telling his story, and it sounds so far out that there are probably people thinking, well, this guy's crazy, or maybe he was an alcoholic or whatever, even though we told you that that's not the case. But here's a couple examples of evidence. Now, if you look him up on the internet, you look up the movies that he was in, you'll see that everywhere, including Wikipedia, his name is either omitted or he's listed at the end, even if he had a starring or co-starring role. That's still happening. You can't change it on Wikipedia and put him as like the third starring person. No, they'll either remove him or put him to the end. That's still there. He just completely blacklisted from the internet. That was one thing. Also, when he went to the Children's Aid Society to try to tell them that he suspected there was ritual abuse going on because of this was only one example about with his wife drowning the kittens. They actually lost his file, misplaced the file, ended up taking the kids away from him. And when he mentioned ritual abuse, they're like, no, we've never heard of it, doesn't exist. And let's see, what was it? Oh, also that a lot of the movies that they put him in, the plots of the movies were actually very similar to the stuff that happened in his real life. So then if he would say later that, this was happening, they'd say, well, you can't tell fiction from fact. You think that what happened in the movie's happening to you. But his wife was some kind of agent. She was actually a prostitute, but she had all these bizarre skills, like she could take anything mechanical apart, put it all back together. She spoke several languages, French, English, Arabic, Italian, very bizarre skills, and she would take on different personalities, but he described her to me as, in general, she was just kind of like a shell. There was really nothing there, but then she would just take on different personas at different times, although completely devoid of any emotion or compassion. And then all this stuff that was happening, like the break-ins to the safety box where he has witnesses, the furniture being moved around in the house, clothes being altered, all these strange things. Those are hard to prove, except for the boxes. But he was, completely blacklisted and targeted, and what they came after was his career and his children. They took that away and blacklisted him completely, but he's working now as an artist, but as a visual artist in Montreal. So if you think he's crazy, the proof is always in the pudding. I mean, the evidence is there that he was targeted. Go and look what he's actually doing with his life. Despite all this, he's a very creative, person who's become actually very successful as a visual artist. So that's not what crazy people do. So, okay, over to you, Steve.
Yeah.
Did you want to have, we've got just a few minutes left here.
I just had one quick thing. It's always a case, and it's, I tend to talk, I get wound up, because you're always, it's been 15 years now, and you're constantly you're always dealing with, oh, you made that up. Why would I make up a story where I end up homeless? I mean, I had lots of attention as an actor. I didn't need this kind of negative attention. I didn't need to be considered mentally ill or crazy. So as far as benefits for me making up a crazy story, and you're always defending yourself against, what proof do you have? My ex-wife told me, you don't have any proof, and without proof, there's nothing you can do. That's my bad French accent, by the way. One more thing to say, and then I'll let you talk, but Shane Black, who created Lethal Weapon, wrote the first Lethal Weapon and was an advisor on the other two, he had contacted me, and he wanted to speak to my wife, who was back on my farm in Canada, because he was doing The Long Kiss Goodnight, which is about a CIA assassin. Gina Davis plays her. And he wanted to talk to her because he said he had some French he needed to translate. So, of course, I gave him the number of the farm and said, yeah, of course, you can talk to my wife. I saw the movie, not in the theaters, but I rented it when it came out. And it talks about 9/11, number one, 5 years before it happened. It also, there's no French in the movie, there's no French subplot. There was, I don't think, ever any French in the movie. And isn't it funny that her and Shane Black were having this exchange when the story's about a CIA assassin? Mm-hmm. Exactly what started unraveling with Florence and her multiple personalities. Like, she was Gina Davis, as far as I could see, when the stuff hit the fan. So why wouldn't he have? He was the highest paid screenwriter at the time in Hollywood. He would just phone a service, and they would send a French translator to his office at the studio within like half an hour. There was no reason to talk to a woman on a farm in Canada when you've got all the translating that you want at your fingertips right there in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty incriminating. Who is she? She's just kind of nobody. He doesn't need her, and there's no French in the movie, but she was like a femme Nikita, like the prostitute.
Yeah, and that's the other series when I'm homeless and sleeping outside. Out of the blue, I get a call from Joel Cerno's office, who created 24, and suddenly I'm seeing dialogue that is exactly lifted out of events of my own life on the TV series, and then the fan club turns against me, and I'm invited to a fan club meeting, which I agreed to go to, because when you get targeted, you're constantly trying to hang on to any friends that you might have, because you get everyone separated or you get blacklisted. So I went to this stupid fan club meeting, and I'm stuck, isolated in a hotel room, and I'm the only actor, and I'm surrounded by people that supposedly work for NSA, CIA, CSIS, and I say, well, why didn't you just kill me when you had a chance? And they giggle and say, well, no, our job is to isolate and discredit. We couldn't kill you.
And that's what they've done.
Okay, well, thanks. You did a good job of that. Then I'm watching Spy Game because Redford and Brad Pitt are in it. And in the movie, there's a point where Redford turns to Brad Pitt's character and says, no, our job in the CIA now is to isolate and discredit. And I'm like, wow, bingo. Ain't that the truth, you know?
Yeah. Well, it goes, the story that you told me and what you told us just now, it just goes to show how extensive this is, how systematic it is, how cleverly done it is, too, that they've done it in such a way that if you try to even tell people about it, you just look crazy, including your wife claiming that she was beaten and going into a shelter. So then when you come out and say there's ritual abuse, well, they think you're completely crazy and they take your kids away.
Yeah, and then don't forget I was starting the production company. I just want to amend that. He wanted to call it Lionsgate. I can't prove that Lionsgate was my company, but that same guy that was my partner, who was a lawyer, who claimed his father ran CSIS, which is Canadian CIA, I went to see him 2 months after my children were taken to France, even though I'd tried to file papers and did everything possible to have them not taken out of the country. I went to see him. I said, John, please, your father with his connections in Ottawa, certainly you can help me. I said, no. I said, why? He goes, well, my father spent his whole life killing people. Why is he going to help you? And then I said, but John, you're my partner? And he said, no, we never had a production company, even though I had copies of paperwork. And then I said to him, well, what can I do? He goes, keep your mouth shut about your kids or you're dead. And he met me in an open coffee shop area inside of a mall. He wouldn't meet me in a restaurant. It had to be open area. And I sensed that there were people watching our conversation. And after he said, just keep your mouth shut about your kids or you're dead, he picked up his briefcase and walked off. And that's the last I ever saw him, talked to him, anything.
Yeah. Well,
so I can't say, yes, Lionsgate's mine, but that was the name that he wanted to call our production company.
That's how it started.
It was out of Vancouver, exactly the same plan as what I had. It was supposed to be, which is anyone that knows me will say, wow, Steven's kind of arty. Well, my idea was to start a production company out of Canada that was also a distribution company, and we would go to film festivals like Redford Sundance, and I was still friends with Redford then, and we buy up, not obscure, but low-budget films with, say, a Willem Dafoe in it, and we do release, arty, low-budget movies. That was the plan, and that's exactly how Lionsgate started. It started in the same city, Vancouver. I mean, it's identical. Mm-hmm. Now, can I prove that Lionsgate's mine? No. Does it matter at this point? Probably not. But, that I have real suspicions about it.
Well, it does, like you said, would they let this huge propaganda machine slip through their fingers? No, of course not. And that's what, Hollywood has become, like you said, with the predictive programming. And that's not only Hollywood, but also politics in general, the way it's filmed, televised. They're basically like just actors the whole thing is like a big mind control show, including the news, where I mentioned before that they use actually actors sometimes to portray the character of a man whose wife went missing, and it never even happened. Like, they hire actors for fake news stories. I mean, the whole thing is, it's a massive propaganda.
Well, there's even stuff now about the World Trade Center where the people they interviewed during, when the World Trade Center thing happened, they were proven to be actors. There's one guy called Mark Humphreys who did a TV series in Canada, and he was living in New York. And if you Google Mark Humphreys 9/11, he looks identical to a character that they interviewed on the 9/11, the day of or the day after 9/11, whatever. Like, they hired actors, man. They hired actors.